We're live. I think.
I'm frozen.
Everybody's frozen. This happened yesterday too.
Yeah.
I know what's happening.
Can you
Joe's
hear
not.
me?
Joe's literally the only person not
Joe's
frozen is the
moving.
guest. So Joe, you're now in charge.
There we go. There we go. Caught up. It caught up. Hey, to all you viewers out there, we told you we got only the best. Only the best. The top tier, the OG, the legends of CrossFit. Joe Degain is here with us. Grandpa Joe Degain, I should say.
I'm pumped. I'm excited. I'm honored to be on the show. I am a grandpa, which means I have wisdom. So I'm excited to share something.
So, I mean, hey, actually, I want to ask you this, Joe. I mean, I would consider you a friend. Same with, Fern. We've known each other over 10 years, all of us. What do you think, seeing us kind of doing our best hour thing? What's the vantage point from the rest of seminar staff about us?
Oh gosh, we have all kinds of material. I mean, we are entertained at our dinners. We just talk smack about you guys.
That's what I would hope.
It's great, and yeah, I mean, I think the CrossFit community, we've been starving for something like this, right? So there's free education. I know there's also paid education along with it, but there's little tidbits about all sorts of stuff that is off the topic of what the L1 and L2 material is about how to run a business and whatnot. So I mean, this is something the CrossFit community has been starving for a long time, and I think it's awesome that some trusted resources like you guys are doing it. Yeah, I love it. Entertaining too. Entertaining.
Jay apparently was just in dire need of some ego stroking.
Yeah,
to lead the show with hey, could you just mind telling me if you think we do a good job? That'd be
Barry Horowitz. Barry Horowitz pat on the
back. I thought it was odd that was what was in my description email, was to just say some nice things to Jason. That was odd.
You're doing well. You're doing well so far.
It's in the show notes. Compliment Jay at every turn.
Yep.
I told this story recently, Joe. I don't know. I think I've told you this. You and I took our level ones in Toronto, October 2007.
Yep.
We didn't know each other at the time. Those that are looking at Joe now, along with myself, we both had long hair. Joe had curly long hair, but Joe is a monster to this day. But 15 years ago, I mean, top tier CrossFitter. So middle of day one, we're in this cold warehouse and we do Fran.
Yes, I remember this. I remember like it was yesterday. Yeah.
But I didn't put two and two together that this was you until somebody, like on Facebook put like the 10-year ago picture up there. So I show up to the level one. You don't, at the time in 2007, you're like the only one doing it in your town. Right? So
Yep.
So I'm like, I'm kind of a badass over here. And I remember saying this to Pat Sherwood. He probably has no recollection. I'm like, look, I don't know. There's some cameras around. You probably want to go get them because I'm about to do under 8 minutes on this Fran thing. Right? So I'm like, hey, Glassman, Nicole, Dave, come on over and watch me. So anyway, I believe we were both in the second heat.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, that Jack dude over there with the curly hair, I'm going to beat this guy. So I finish my 21s, and I'm like 3 minutes and 3:30-ish in, right? 21. And I see you. I don't realize it's you at the time. I see you kind of walk off. And I was like, that dude quit. How do you quit in CrossFit? Like, how does he quit? And meanwhile, later on, I'm like, oh, he finished. He was done. I'm just getting to I still got, 15s and 9s to go. Sherwood's over here like, this is how you kip. And I'm like, all right, dude, I'm not learning it right now. Like, but anyway.
Yeah.
So it wasn't for like
the funny thing about that story, Joe, is he still has not learned to kip. 10 years later, after that, 15 years later, Pat Sherwood would be sorely disappointed. By the way, thank you, Michael. And we agree that yes,
as
Joe
always
should be paid off for giving Jay compliments.
But so anyway, it was like 10 years later, somebody posted that picture. I'm like, oh, that's Joe. And then I realized.
Is that right? Yeah. No, you never told me that specific story. Something else interesting about that seminar, Jay, is that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was Greg Glassman's last seminar.
I believe it was. Yeah. He did all.
Yeah. We kind of left out with that.
I want to say like middle of day 2, he left and Dave kind of took over. Dave Castro, that is. I remember Dave giving the GHD lecture. What do you remember from that? Because I I remember the big squat group at the early in day one, and we did like bottom to bottom Tabata. I know we did Fran. We done like a fight gone badish workout, but
Yep, we did a fight gone bad.
what,
We also did I forgot what the official name of it was. But it was kind of comical. It resembled a circle jerk. It was the medicine ball clean and jerk circle. Remember the medicine ball?
Okay,
It was
yeah.
on demand medicine ball clean. Everybody had to be in the bottom of the squat. You had to stand up. You had on command. You had to jerk the medicine ball, and then on command, everyone had to stand together. And it was torture. It was torture. And if I'm not mistaken, Eva T ran that portion of, and she was, oh man, was she tough. She was, you had to be on command and hit every single part of that of that medicine ball clean and jerk. Yeah, but between those three things or four things, we had Fran fight gone bad, we had the bottom to bottom Tabata, and then we had the circle jerk, medicine ball clean and jerk. Yeah,
and like you said,
that was Greg's last one. And oddly enough, I actually saw Greg talk last night. I went to one of those science breaking the science things.
How many words did you understand at the lecture?
Oh my goodness, I know. He's mesmerizing to listen to still. But he also, after he does say all those big words and stuff, he does kind of dumb it down for all the jocks in the room to come around to what he's trying to get across. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that was the feedback that we kind of was like. You sent it to Jay, and Jay was like, "Hey, watch this," and I was like, "You gotta tighten that up, man." Like,
yeah, Fred was like, "Who's he talking to?"
Yeah, and then I was like, and definitely don't end it with like, none of this really matters, so don't worry about it. I was just like, let's tie that up a little bit cleaner.
So he was just in Michigan last night.
Yeah, he was at Hillsdale College in Michigan last night.
Oh,
and
cool.
It was kind of neat to go out there and just see him in his doing his new thing and being in his element. That was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Real quick before we launch. We're going to bury the lead, as Jay likes to say. We're going to bury the lead. So as of today, CrossFit launched a new in-person course called CrossFit Fundamentals course. And this is it's a one-day in-person course. So if anybody's interested, oh yeah, thank you, Cody. Appreciate that. It's a one-day in-person. It's not a certificate course, but it's for new people, experienced people who just want to get a little bit more information on CrossFit. And one-day course, it's in select areas right now. But if you're interested in it and you don't necessarily want to be a CrossFit coach, but want to get educated on it, you can attend these courses, and they're pretty reasonable in price. But it's introduction to CrossFit methodology, foundation and common movements, basics of nutrition, group workouts. It's fitting because common movements today. We're going to talk about the common movements theme in the level 2. So.
Well, and Joe actually brought up a really good idea offline. Something we coach in Affiliate U is an ambassador program. And that would be a great thing for someone that doesn't necessarily, want to become a coach. The level one's for everyone, for the record, whether you want to become a coach or not. But, a little bit of a lesser barrier to entry, just, a one-day thing, kind of learn a little bit. Yeah, I think that'd be great for those of you that are doing an ambassador program. That could be a potential, reward at, to incentivize them. That's really
I just always think it's good to have, obviously you have your ambassadors that are pro your gym, but have them, they may not want to coach, but it's better than not for them to be a little bit more educated on the methodology, right? To understand it and to be able to like translate some of that verbiage, kind of like we were just talking about with Coach Glassman, into layman's terms for the new people. It never hurts to have more people flying the flag and speaking to it. So check it out. But today, common movement themes, level 2, in my opinion, best course out there that CrossFit offers. But we're going to dive into the common movement themes. Joe, in the level 2, what is your favorite part about the level 2 course as a whole?
Well, how often do my bosses watch this, Jason?
Every day. I was with Nicole Carroll this past weekend. She's like, listen, I've been watching since day one. I'm an avid fan.
Don Fall is our number one, listener.
Don
Fall is actually Trish. That's his YouTube.
That's true. That's funny.
My favorite part of the L2 is usually happens on day 2, and that is when the participants start to get comfortable with, they've developed a rapport with the staff, and they start asking these questions that I think they came up with weeks ago before they came to the course. And they're usually like client specific questions. Like, hey, what do you do? What do you do if you have a client who is always showing up late for class? What do you do if you've got, you're only limited by your imagination with the stuff clients can do. And all the affiliate owners listening know that. You guys know that. And they ask about these hypothetical people, and they want to go down these rabbit holes, and essentially it ends up leading to a discussion about gym culture, and how that scenario may have arrived by not fostering the right kind of culture that you want in your gym. And I've always believed that in order to be a good coach, you have to have obviously a knowledge of your craft, but you also have to have that unaccredited degree in psychiatry to know how to get through to your people, to know how to foster that community that you want to have, that fits your liking of what you're looking for. And then it always leads to that unaccredited degree in psychiatry of what people need to have to address those questions. So it's all the side discussions that happen, and when we go off on tangents, it's those things. Because they're real, they're authentic conversations about real frustrations that people have in the gym.
I similarly like day two, because I think day two, you see some breakthroughs. You see somebody who was struggling with something pretty significantly on day one, make some headway on whatever that kind of, whether it was a presence and attitude issue or a correcting issue or a seeing issue, watching them get to unpack it and actually be like, that was objectively better than it was yesterday. And you've done it with more people. So like this, I always find that to be like the best part about the level 2.
Yeah. Lots of aha moments. Definitely lots of aha moments. Yeah.
I love that. That's true. I love the day 2 Q&A at the beginning, because you're right, Joe. And I think for a lot of, whether they're owners or coaches, are like, all right, we've got a scenario. It's unbelievable. You're not going to believe us. This never happened before. And you're like, this happened the 3 other gyms last week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's dig in. We're going to talk about the common movement themes. Can you guys name the common movement themes?
Well, can you name the common movement themes, Jay?
In fairness,
obviously,
they're in the email. Thank you, Cody.
Two. Yeah, I was going to let you cheat, but let's assume that the 2 flow masters know it, and that
this is how I remembered MCBP safe. That's how I remember them. When it's an acronym right there.
Okay.
How'd you guys? Did you guys just remember the 8? Yeah, there we go. Joby did it the same way. How'd you guys remember that? Because I remember, you get through the level 1. For those that are listening, you've learned, I think there's 9 lectures in the level 1, and you've kind of made your way through there. And then all of a sudden you're like, cool, I get to work level 2s. And you're like, oh, wait, I got to learn a whole bunch of new lectures. And this, at the time when the 3 of us, at least Fern and I, maybe it was a little different for you, Joe, but it was like an hour and 15 lecture. Now it's a little, now I want to say it's like 45, right?
45.
But it's, but it's like all of these themes, tons of movement demos. So I remember when I got this, I was like, wow, this is a lot to understand and unpack. But
it's a robust lecture. It definitely is. It's robust, and it's very, very valuable. I mean, you can almost see, when I deliver that lecture, you can see little light bulbs going off in people's heads. Because I also believe it's coming right off of a seeing drill. We're coming right off of a seeing drill when we go into that. And then I think it's very valuable information where you can just see dots being connected in participants' heads as we start just identifying things, and it just seems so obvious to them once you say what the theme is, and once you introduce what it is and where you look for it and what the faults are. People they're pretty amazed at how much logical sense it makes.
So you just brought something up there, which is kind of like your kind of flow through presenting that information. And you brought up a couple of things, what it is, and then where to look. And I think that's the big takeaway when we're talking about these. And we'll obviously talk about all of them. I was actually just looking at the trainer guide to see if that was the exact, because I remembered them. I think it was just based on I remember everything about how I set my board up.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an acronym. I just remember like these 4 are on this side, and then these 4 are on this side. And then I was looking up in the participant trainer guide, not ours, what the order is. And I guess I never realized that it was in that order for the acronym until I was looking to see if it was the same as the way you remembered it, Jay, which is probably why Joe remembered it that way.
Yeah. So you want to
what did I think I memorized it in the order of midline, core-to-extremity, balance, frontal plane. Then we go to posterior chain engagement. Am I in order right now from the chain? And then we go to sound hip flexion. Then we go to active shoulders. Yep. Okay. Range of motion and grip and stance. Yep. Okay.
Yep. Crushed it. You get to keep your job, Joe.
Woo! All right, I'm going to punch out of this podcast.
Well, and just for the record,
go out on top.
Yeah, go on top. Also, for anybody that's registered for the level 4, you may see this handsome gentleman, tucked away in the corner of your gym, basically evaluating you for failure.
How much can you talk about it, Joe? You're one of the handful of assess. Are we allowed to say that you're? I mean, we're live, so Fern did just say it, but
questions that need answering.
I can recite anything that's already public. Which I mean, there's a there's a rubric that's public. There's some things that are public out there, and I can recite any of those.
I have it printed out right here.
Yeah, there we go. There it is.
Through the level 4 handbook right here.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely interesting, though. I mean, we are only supposed to. We are under strict orders to only talk about the stuff that's public. So I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I get nervous when I'm talking about it because I'm trying to decipher. Wait, is that public? Is that where are we at with that?
I mean, obviously, you can't talk about like how you grade or what the workouts are, any of that other stuff. But
now, essentially, you come to a senior staff member's gym is usually what the case is, or you can schedule your own private level 4, and basically you coach a class. And I know, like, logically that seems kind of weird. You're going into somebody else's gym and you're just going to coach a class at their affiliate, but we try to tee people up for success. By people come in, they have name tag. Everybody's got a name tag because obviously you don't know everybody's name. You have a name tag. You get to show up beforehand and kind of check out the gym space. So it's not like you're just coming in on 2 tires and you don't understand what the gym space is. But yeah, you come in and then essentially you're graded on what's exactly right there in the rubric, Jay. And I think they are there's some teaching, right, and there's some seeing and some correcting, some group management, presence and attitude. And then I believe rather than demonstration, which is the 6th foundation we talk about at the L2, it has more to do with application.
Right.
And basically that's application of the theoretical methodology is what it is. And
Jay, what you should probably get familiar with is the appeals process. Like, how do I appeal a poor grade? So it's right here. You just want to send an email to certifications@crossfit.com if you want to appeal the ruling.
Send it to HR. That's funny. You can appeal it. That is really funny.
I mean, it's probably like appealing a no rep at the games. They're like, thanks, yeah, but the score stands.
Noted.
But interesting enough, like you know what, when I was at dinner last night, there was an L3 coach that was sitting at my table, and he asked me, what does it do? So I go get my L4. I pay this price tag. I get this L4. Like, what am I better on Monday? Is essentially what he was asking. And I mean, yeah, you'll probably learn something, and you'll be better on Monday. And you'll be better for what you go through in the process of preparing for this L4. But and I don't know if you guys have already addressed this on the podcast or not. It is the only certification in the fitness industry that is an actual practical. It's a practical grade. Like we're going to watch you in the moment. We're going to watch you do your thing. And then we are going to evaluate you on you doing your thing. And I mean, unless you guys can think of one right now, I can't think of any other hitter in the fitness industry that offers a certification like that.
There is one other, and it is like, it's in the strength and conditioning world, but it is not like this. Like it is a practical thing where you have to show up and you have to demonstrate some stuff, but it's in a much more controlled environment, meaning like you have to demonstrate that you know how to do certain things. But so there is one, and I can't remember. It's not CSCS. It's like CC. I can't remember what it is, but there is another one. But it is not like this. It is not a live, like no holds barred, walk in here. This is a like a legit real class, and you don't get any information beforehand. Like, you're gonna have to deal with all these problems real time.
Yeah, you got some people in the class who've only been CrossFit for a week. You got some people in class who are old hands in the gym. You got some people who just you know, are I don't know, group cohesion matters and everything. Yeah, so
Right.
it's a good test. It really is.
So, assuming you can answer this, someone shows up for the L4. How much are the participants there like noted? Like, oh, that guy's kind of being a pain in the ass. You know, like, do you guys weigh that? If someone shows up, like, we know a handful of people that have been through our
I don't know if you could talk about that.
Right. That's what, but I'm interested because that could make or break a class essentially.
I think that's really interesting what just happened. Fern, I appreciate you stepping in and saying I don't think you can talk about that. And
well,
then then Jason, Ackerman, you just completely disregarded it. Yeah, but I'm wondering though. I know you might not be able to talk about it, but I'm wondering.
Curious.
I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah. This is one of those answers where it's just like a great coach can solve that problem based on how they approach said problem set.
Nice play on words there. That's good. I like that.
That was good.
That was good. Concise and to the point.
So how about this, Joe? With regard to common movement themes, so there are 8, right? So we have the 9 foundational movements, we have the 6 criteria, and then we have the 8 themes within the common movement themes. As a coach, right? So we could speak to a coach on the everyday floor, and we'll speak even specifically to somebody who's prepping for their level 4. Is there a priority across these 8, or how would you approach that?
Yeah, I hear you. I can't say that I can't say that there is a priority because they all, although they are all listed independently of one another, they all are intertwined, right? There's a little bleed over from all of them, and the easiest way I can comment on that would be that is the grip and the stance, which is listed as, like, we when we named them off, that's the last one, that's the 8th one. So I mean, if you were just looking at it, you say, oh well, the least important one would be grip and stance. However, as we all know, adjusting grip and stance can fix any violations in any one of those other themes. And then I think it's also going to be person specific as well. It's going to be unique to where what is the most important. Well, that's going to be where some people are. Where are they failing at in all of these? And the low hanging fruit, I think, is just to assume that midline stabilization is, and that's definitely big. But I mean, if they're only having minor violations in midline stabilization, and I guess I would compare that to I don't know, maybe we've got somebody that's losing their lumbar curve, and maybe it's slipping from that concave position, maybe into, like, say, a flat back. It's not actually going into a convex, but it's just slipping into a flat back. But we've got somebody who's got knees that are touching each other. Well, we've got a serious posterior chain engagement problem. And by degree, for that person, it's going to be more important with the posterior chain engagement is going to be more important than that back, that slip from the lumbar curve to the flat back. On the other hand, you got somebody who slips from a lumbar curve into a convex position, right? So they're bowed out like a Halloween cat, but they got their knees are caving in, but just slightly. So the category definitely matters, but the degree of the fault matters as well as to where you're going to place it on your priority list there.
But how do I figure this out, Joe?
Yeah, that's
I don't know. What do I do?
That's time under tension. That's just getting out there.
You're saying you have to coach.
You got to coach. You got to do it. You got to be part of the process, and you got to be nice to yourself, really, as a coach, because you got to be nice to yourself and realize that you're going to walk off that dance floor once in a while, and you're not going to be happy with the decision you made to prioritize this over that. And you got to be able to have the ability to self-reflect. You got to have the ability to look back and say, I probably should have done this. And then and a lot of it does rely on you. It relies on you to coach and to do the self-reflection and to try to make yourself better, because we all know that the walls, those 4 walls of your gym, super easy just to become isolated on your own little island. Nobody ever sees you, and you just start coaching your own way, and you can make these patterns happen over and over again that you just, because of complacency, And if you don't challenge yourself like that and start coaching, you get time under tension. Is how you figure that out.
Time under tension is a CrossFit thing that coaches say about multiple things, but we use that in the training world and also in the coaching space too. I like that. You need that time under tension. But tangent, Joe, how did you develop into the coach you are today from that level 1? Those that don't know Joe, 810 CrossFit, long-standing, great affiliate in Michigan, Division I wrestler. You're at Michigan State, right?
Jason.
University of Michigan.
Broke my heart just now.
One of the Michigans.
I am not part of the Greenie Weenie Club, man.
I don't think you understand how much of a insult that is. Like that cuts deep if you're from.
But I appreciate all the compliments before that, though. I appreciate so I'll let
D1 wrestler, former. Hey Joe, tell the story about when you were a teacher and somebody did the Scantron, and you said every time there was a wrong answer, it would beep. I've heard you tell that story before, and it was like beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
And that was, and you were a phys ed teacher, and then you resigned, if you will, to become a CrossFit coach. What was this?
All right, there's a lot to unpack. You want the Scantron story, or do you want to know how I ended up getting into coaching and identifying?
Yeah, I want all of it. He wants all of it.
He wants to give Cody an aneurysm, is what he wants. Cody's trying to keep the show on track, and Jay's just like,
it's so hard because we're breaking down the manual every week, and we have these amazing guests. We had Haydock last week, you, Pat Barber, and it's like, man, these are OGs, they're legends in CrossFit, and I want to hear you talk about this great stuff, but at the same time, you have amazing stuff to be talking about.
Well, let me see if I can't combine this answer into to be both of them. So before CrossFit, I was a school teacher. I taught school for about 12 or 13 years. And during that time, I was a wrestling coach as well. And then of course, I was a wrestler all my life, like you were mentioning earlier, for University of Michigan, Jason. And during that time, so really being part of the wrestling community all that time, and just watching wrestling movement. When I switched over to CrossFit, and I was a physical education teacher and a wrestling coach, so I already had an eye for watching human movement happen. But once I switched over to CrossFit, I can actually remember early on in like my L1 and then at my L2, which then eventually became known as L4. I can remember Nicole actually being like asking me the same thing. How do you see movement so well? And it was because CrossFit movement was really easy for me to see once you were a wrestling coach. When you're a wrestling coach and you're watching all the dynamic positions and they're happening so fast, and you're watching hip placement and hip function and whatnot, and where pieces of the body should be at a given time. When I switched over to CrossFit, I was like, oh, we're just watching one person move a barbell. Oh, this is easy. It was really easy to see because I was used to watching somebody else trying to manipulate another body that's moving as well. So I think I would attribute that to my ability to see human movement, and eventually then the common movement themes was just putting context on all of it is all it was. But as a teacher, Jason, so we had to run Scantrons through the Scantron machine.
I don't know if they even still use Scantrons.
I highly doubt it. But you remember on the side there would always be those little pink dots. That would mean you got one wrong. There'd be like a red dot or dash next to your question on the Scantron machine, your answer. And when you feed it through the Scantron machine, if a kid gets like 3 wrong, it goes click, click, click. But if you feed one through that has a lot wrong, it'll go click, 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 click as it goes through. Well, my last day in the teaching industry, I'm standing in line at the Scantron machine, and I got like 100 Scantrons, 200 Scantrons I got to run through. And the woman in front of me was the meanest teacher I'd ever met. She was mean to me. She was mean to kids. She was mean to principals and other teachers, parents. She was just a mean, grumpy old lady. And I didn't even want to talk to her, so I wasn't saying a word. But she feeds her Scantron through the machine, and it sounds like a bandsaw when it goes through there. It's just like, and it was so bad that I had to say something to her. I'm like, hey, I'm kind of peeking around. Who got that many wrong? And she picks it up. She picks it up to show me the Scantron machine. And the kid had bubbled in piss off across all the bubbles. It was just all the bubbles. It just said piss off across all of them. And I know, and I was so politically correct. I was like, "Oh, you got to turn that in immediately." I can't believe he did that to you. That's terrible. Yeah, that was my last day in the teaching industry. Yeah. Yep.
All right, back on track, Fern.
Yeah, let's circle back around. I love it.
Yeah. So how about this? I'll go the other end of the spectrum. So is there one of those 8, or are there a few of those 8 that you find coaches specifically struggle to see and correct? So like thinking like, is there one you're like, man, people really struggle with that? I've got a couple that come to mind. But I was curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, I hear you. I think, yeah, I got a couple in mind too that I could kind of rattle off the top of my head, and I think they're not necessarily overall themes, but I think they're position specific themes. Like one would be, I think that there's a lot of coaches who struggle to see an active shoulder in a kipping pull up. I think, especially on the descent of a kipping pull, not necessarily an active shoulder, maybe in an overhead position or just pressing overhead, but hanging from a bar. I see a lot of athletes that just surrender to the load as they come off of a kipping pull up, and coaches just let it go. Another one I think would be like the sound hip function. I think a lot of coaches specific. I think as a community, we've gotten really good at seeing lack of hip extension.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I feel like our ability, maybe not. I don't know if it's our ability to fix to see a muted hip, but I see a lot of coaches struggle to fix a muted hip. Once they see it, I think it happens fast. I think the athlete recovers from it almost like a box jump, right? Like they do something, the hip's muted, then it's gone, and it just gets overlooked. So I don't know if it's not seen, or if it's not being, or if it's a lack of ability to correct it. But I think, I mean, those are just a couple off the top of my head that I think I see coaches struggling.
You brought up one that was one of the questions that we had too, which is like, so actually, I'm not even sure if it's super apparent when you see a muted hip. I think a lot of people misinterpret or don't actually know the difference between lack of hip extension and
that's fair enough.
Hip. Like they'll call one the other. They'll be like, oh, that's a muted hip, and I'm like, it's wrong, but I get where you're going with that. You're calling it the wrong thing. But with the muted hip, what is one of the best ways that you've found to correct an athlete in the muted? And again, Trish is here, or Don Fall is here. The comments are out. The comment section is out of control, and I'm so glad that everybody's hating on you for your.
This is on you. This is on you, Fern.
Yeah, I love it.
Fern made me wear these today. I did not want to wear them.
I can't put my arms down. So how would you fix?
Are they remaking a Christmas Story?
God, I think they are actually. So muted hip, Joe. What are some effective ways? And we actually did this in one of the recent staff calls. We had like the little room breakouts, and people were going through like, hey, what do you struggle with the most, and how do you go about ways of fixing it?
Yes, I remember that. Yep.
But for a muted hip, like what's a couple of key ways that you find that are like your go-tos? Not necessarily like this will fix it for everybody, but what's a go-to for you?
Yeah, well, let me give you 2 answers to that. One would be like in a one-on-one situation, and one would be like in a group setting. I got 1 second to fire off a verbal cue.
Right.
But definitely my favorite way is if I can get somebody to essentially do, if you can just visualize like an unweighted, like a snatch balance, but not actually with any of the overhead, not with the snatch, just the ability to jump up and then pull yourself down and land, and without any additional barbell in your hand in any manner. So you're just standing feet right under your, can you jump up and land in a good squat?
Right.
Because I think, their body, when the muted hip happens, the mind knows the body has to go down, but they're just going down by doing a limbo basically, rather than actually squatting. So I'm just trying to teach them how to go back down. So getting somebody in a one-on-one situation, say, okay, just jump up and land in a squat. Just jump up and land. Now do your clean and land in a squat. Don't land in a limbo. Just to jump up and land that way. That's actually where I see it the most common at, is in the receiving position of a clean, is where I see the muted hip is most often.
Yeah, the old high school clean, the high school football clean.
On the dance floor, when you say 3, 2, 1, go, and the inmates are running the asylum, and it's going bananas in the gym, and you don't have time to run over and be like, oh, I need you to jump up and land in a squat. I like to tell. I'll just run up to people, and I like a visual cue. I'll get right in front of them. I'll turn myself profile so they have the ability to see, and I'll point right at my hip, and I'll just kind of do like a little partial squat, and I'll point that my hip's going back. I'll say, hey, when you go down, go back with your butt, like you're going down to a chair, back with your butt.
Right.
And I'll just try to say that so they can look at me, they can see it real quick, and they're just seeing my fingers point backwards. And then hopefully, and then I'll go from there. But usually those are my two most successful cues. They know, obviously no cue is perfect. It never works 100% of the time,
Right.
but those are my go-tos. Yeah.
The visual I think is key. And I think the key takeaways are is like you use the visual in the midst of the workout, because that's where it's most effective, typically speaking. The other one I find that a lot of people skip over is the depth of the dip tends to become a problem, and they're looking at everything except for like how far down that distance of travel is when they go through the dip portion of it. And if they just shorten that up, they tend to be more upright in some of those positions. So if anybody gets stuck, check that out as well, and that can help as well. What was the other? There was something else in here that you brought up that I wanted to get to. I lost it. Anyway, and yes, we could do a show just with these comments, everybody, and you guys could. We should do one, and we'll title the show "Don't Ever Watch This."
I do not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I used to think you and I said some outrageous things, Fern. These people are crazy.
Yeah. This is what happens when Savan gets kicked off of YouTube. And I'm like, that's true.
Y'all come here. Hey, we'll take it. So
well, he already addressed this question as where do most people get active shoulder wrong? And I would agree. A lot of that is in the pull up, and that's just a general awareness, and sometimes a lack of strength piece.
Just what right when they push away from the bar, when they come down, they're on their way, and it's just, you can almost just hear the boom. There's just the yankiness and see the surrender happening. And it just, and again, just like the box jump or like that muted hip and a push press where it's just happening quick. Like it just, I think it's just so fast and it's over before you know it. I think a lot of times coaches just let it go.
This other question on here is like, which one is the most controversial point of these? And I believe it would be active shoulders. There are some points of contention with regard to pro versus retraction of the shoulder, depending on the movement. So I've seen many people teach retraction, like scapular retraction in overhead positions, is something that I've seen taught more than a few times.
And I have empathy for that point of view. I get that, because you do see a lot of times when people put a bar over their head, you can really see that happen. And how do you do that? You pull down and retract and undo. And I think sometimes I could see that. Yeah. With the active shoulder, I think sometimes it's the active shoulder seems to be something that is taught in a contrived manner to get a point across.
I would agree.
Right. To basically
in many positions,
how to not surrender. Yeah, many positions. Like we're gonna pull down, and then and also even like active shoulders. I think I think to the to the newer coach or to the rudimentary coach, it's easy just to say like blindly press up into the bar, which we know can also lend to, if I'm going to press up as far as I can stay really, really good. But if I keep pressing up and I just keep pressing up, that shoulder is going to rotate the wrong way. So I think it could be over taught just in a manner because coaches know that people are going to probably surrender it.
Right. And I think this is a good question here in the overhead squat. Why press up when shoulders down and back feel better? I think that's subjective, Kyle. So I'm not saying you're wrong, but that doesn't always feel better to everybody. So I've had many people that struggle in that position. But I think discussion around this topic, specifically active shoulders, requires nuance. So I don't think it's up or down. It's just neutral. And that requires a fight, right? So I'm not actively pulling them down because that would inherently restrict your ability to move your shoulders through range of motion, which is required in the overhead squat specifically. And then pressing up, like you just said, can in many instances result in internal rotation. So both of those in done to a contrived point would result in poor position or poor technique.
Yeah, yeah, and you have to in that overhead squat. I appreciate that question, Kyle. You have to press up. You have to. That bar is over your head. There has to be upward pressure on that. I mean, if all you're doing is pulling down, you're not going to be able to support that load. There has to be upward pressure. It's just a matter of how much of it is in there.
Right.
And I do hear about putting that shoulder in the right position, pulling it down, but then you have to press up once you're there. But to get into that locked position, you have to press up with that bar over your head.
Yeah. I think it's just it's a nuanced, and I think people piss and moan about silly stuff like that. It's just like, it's like one of those positions, it's good or bad when you see it. Like if it's restricted, it's bad. If it's internally rotated, it's bad. Just put them in a better position, which is
you're right. Yeah. I say that all the time, that our human eye is an exquisite gauge for proper movement. It really is. So even if you don't know all the points of performance, I hope coaches do know all the points of performance. But even if a coach doesn't know all the points of performance, we've all seen like a bone break or something on YouTube or in real life, and it just makes you cringe. You're like, I don't know, the body's not supposed to do that. It just doesn't feel right. And when you see that shoulder looking all rotated in, or when you see those knees caving in and somebody looks like Bambi on ice, you can trust your eye that like, that knee doesn't look aligned. Move it that way. And you can trust that intuition in your gut. I think that's something that you can lean on when you see something that just doesn't look natural in the gym.
So, but Fred, I want to go back for one sec. You said, because one of the questions that Cody prepared was, what is the most controversial point about this topic? CrossFit contains lots of movements that aren't functional. For example, handstand walking or snatching. And Joe, I don't know if this is an answer you've given out before, but I think we were at Rogue. I just remember this for some reason. And someone was like, kind of asked this question about an agility ladder. And I'm going to paraphrase what you said, because I've stolen it as my own many times. But it was Joe Degain. And he said something like, I don't know, but if grandma can do an agility ladder, I'm a little less concerned that she's going to fall down and not be able to get back up. Right? So I think you can classify a lot. You said that. I think you can classify a lot of these movements as, they're not functional, but if you can do them, life's going to be a little bit easier for you.
Yeah, I hear it. Yeah, I mean, if grandma can do the dot drill or can do the agility ladder drill, I have all the confidence in her going down into the basement to get a can of beans or something that she canned last year, and if she falls, she can get her foot out right there. But then some of the movements, I think it becomes even more. I think it becomes more apparent as to how they're still functional, and the snatch being one of them, right? Where like we know that the squat is a functional movement. We don't have to argue about that. We know that the deadlift is. We know that just the plain ability to accelerate something through your hip to get it to a position of support is and then when you can combine all those movements and do this cool movement that just looks amazing. Like, are we going to go and snatch a bag of dog food off the ground? No, we're not probably going to do that. But we have all the confidence that this individual, I hope I can still snatch when I'm 90. That means I'm not in the nursing home. Handstand push or handstand walk. I think I heard you say that one. If I'm 90 and I have the ability to balance in the frontal plane while I'm on my hands, I would consider that a pretty big attribute to me being able to keep my balance in any given situation out there in the real world.
Well, I think this is a discussion about, if we're talking functional movements are only one part of CrossFit, right? Or one aspect, is one piece of the definition. So constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity. But then when we talk about the definition of fitness, if we're thinking work capacity across broad time and modal domains, well, part of that definition is built off of the very first model, which is the 10 general physical skills, right? So yes, those movements are not functional. However, if we're talking about the agility ladder, walking on your hands, doing a snatch balance, even with just a broomstick or a PVC pipe, it does speak to many of the things within inside the list of the 10 general physical skills. And if you do not have the cardiorespiratory endurance, strength, stamina, flexibility, speed, power, coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance. If you're deficient in any one of those, well, it highlights a deficiency that would make your life better if we could correct it. Right. So it's not just about the functional movements, but it's just like, I tell people, I'm like, should everybody be snatching 135? Absolutely not. Some people should not snatch 95. But if my 75-year-old grandma can snatch a PVC pipe, to your point, Joe, I know a lot of things about her ability to navigate her world, whether she's in the backyard doing gardening or going to the grocery store getting things. Like, she has a capacity to move through ranges of motion and get up. Right. And I think that's where people get lost in the functional movement. It's just like, are you going to do that every day? That's a joke I make all the time. Are you going to snatch your luggage into the overhead compartment on a plane? Probably not. Might probably do a clean and a push press. But if you did snatch it, like, we're best friends now, because I'm gonna see you, right? We're good. But so
in the training setting, how many chances are you going to get a bang for your buck with being able to put all that neurological kinesthetic work all into one movement? We only got so much time in a day to train. Yeah, do a snatch. You're going to knock out a bunch of the requirements of what you want to be able to do the rest of your life. Yeah.
Right. And yes, Michael, I was just showing off. You're welcome. So there was so you're going back to the knees thing that you brought up, Joe. There's another question here about posterior chain engagement. If you find someone whose knees are consistently diving in when squatting or collapsing as they run, what are your go-to ways to help them better recruit posterior chain and develop awareness with those, in air quotes, inactive muscles?
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I definitely, you see, do I have, I don't want to, I got some over here, but I don't want to feel like a walking billboard. But I mean, I definitely believe in them. You can get those cheap little bands that go around the knees.
Oh yeah,
and they're just constantly pulling. I think
Slingshot.
even I do have one sitting right here. I guess those are one of these things.
Those are
and
from
the crossover
symmetry makes those. Yep.
And I think I really do. I think that's a huge aha moment. And it's not even a matter of, a lot of times, I mean, definitely right on that question, that, like, how do you get them to develop the strength? But I would argue that it's definitely the CrossFit definition of strength, right? Which is the productive application of force, which is basically just our brain telling our body to turn it on.
Right.
Not necessarily the muscle fiber is probably there. The muscle fiber is probably there. They have the ability to do. They don't have the neurological connection to turn. Then you put one of those on, or one of just the thin band. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
And I love it. You got it up here. And it's $45. Awesome, sexy looking tool that you could use. But I mean, this can be done. This can be done with a cheap little $1 band as well.
And they are meaning Crossover Symmetry is one of the APN partners. So I believe it's like 30% if you go into your affiliate portal to buy those.
Okay. Yeah.
You get a pretty significant banded.
And obviously,
banded. Yeah, banded marches are like legit fantastic warm-up tool, and there's so many variations of banded march that it's wild.
And I think just talking about it as a coach, just doing it in your general warm-up and just talking about it, that's the education that just kind of seeps into your athletes' heads. And you talk to about it do you feel that, guys? And then you say, hey, we're going to be running today, and that's what your knees should be. They shouldn't be collapsing in. You should have this kind of emotion happening today, and they can take that feeling they have and apply it to other things.
We are not sponsored by Crossover Symmetry, but we are sponsored by Best Hour of Their Day.
Jay, I have not made this much money as an affiliate owner ever. Like I get uncomfortable to even sometimes bring it up, because I'm like, I don't want affiliates to feel like, hey, like I'm not there. Like I've never had this much rapid success rate, this much traffic, this much involvement, this much just even community building within themselves. It is wild what's happening at Cal Harbor. And I have a system in place to just balance every single piece of it. So it's not like a dismantle to juggle, right? Like everything is operating smoothly. And it's almost like scary how successful everything is being becoming. I spoke to my website guy 2 days ago, and I was like, I almost called you and told you to shut down my website because I can't keep up with all these inquiries. Like, I can't,
Don't do that.
I know, I won't. No. And I'm really, the biggest thing I try to tell my coaches is my goal, what I've been focusing mainly on, is breaking that myth. I want to break this myth that people who think that people who own affiliates or own gyms, it's like a hobby. It's a thing that's not going to be long-term. You're doing it because you enjoy it. It's not, quote unquote, a real job. Like, I'm breaking that. I want to break all of that. Like you said, I'm ready to take home 6 figures, provide my staff with such stable income that they're just like, this is my full-time gig. This is what I do for a career. And that kind of mentality has fueled me to just keep on doing what I'm doing with everything. Because I'm sick and tired of people thinking that affiliate ownership is like a short-term thing, that it's not fun, that it's not successful. It's like, oh, what are you gonna do for a real job? This is my real job, motherfucker.
Salty. That's why we like
good,
Louis,
right?
bringing the heat. But Louis killing it. But here's what's important. Like, his gym's doing fantastic. But here's actually what I think is more important. He's so happy at his gym. That's the most important thing to me, and for what we do, is that, like, yes, all those things are good, but like, that dude's so happy as an affiliate owner, and that's what I want for all affiliate owners. Like, I want them to be like over the moon about their thing. And then obviously make as much money as you want, but like, you should love it, and it should absolutely provide value to your life instead of stress you the fuck out.
And by the way, those are not fabricated. Those are just simply, we're on calls with clients throughout the day, and Louis was saying that, and I was like, yo, we record a lot of our calls. I'm going to clip that. He was cool with it. We're not setting up a camera and doing fake calls, right, Fern?
Yeah, there are people that do that, which is weird, but we are not them. Yes. So Joe, when you wrap up the common movement themes lecture, like, I haven't seen you give this in a while, but how do you wrap up that lecture to kind of like get people the big ticket takeaway of this? Clearly it's just like, yes, you need to know all these things, you need to know where to look, but like, how do you button that up for a coach to be able to take that information and use it practically?
Yeah, well, I think an important way to wrap that up is to definitely talk to what you just said, Jason. Is it's a cheat sheet. It really is a cheat sheet, and it's a test that somebody can put themselves through to really to be able to step on the dance floor and just watch movement happen and be able to see all these themes everywhere. And and once you can identify all those themes, you can almost evaluate your coaching to a certain extent. But I think it's also really important at the end of that lecture to mention that that there's other things to consider also as well. And we talk about that with, like, the training age of the athletes, how much training experience is under the athlete, how much can they get out of these positions. And a good example of that would be the CrossFit Games. We have a lot of athletes at the CrossFit Games who have been athletes all their life. They've trained their body. Their body is rigid. Their body can handle violations of these themes, and they can get away with it just because of their training capacity and how much they've gathered over the time of their lifespan. And that's something that's really to consider, is I think a lot of times people can watch the games and they figure, they have an aha moment, like, oh my gosh, look at what so-and-so is doing. I need to do that in the gym. And they're doing something that is against one of the themes, right? They're violating one of the themes, but they can get away with it because, this how much training their body has gone through. They can get in non-desirable positions and come out unscathed, right? They're all right. And but the common folk, which is 99% of the people who are going to walk through the gym, not a games athlete, they can't handle those undesirable positions. So it's our job to make sure that we understand those, but also understand the context in which what we see when we watch the CrossFit Games. That's not exactly how I wrap it up, but that's just how I decided to answer the question there, in case Don's watching.
Don is watching. Well, and one of the things we talk about in the lecture itself is, we hit these common themes, we're going to increase performance and decrease risk. And that's really the goal of this. Doesn't take a flow master to give that answer, right, guys?
No.
So on that note, so like, and all of this is aimed at giving people a good experience, right? And obviously keeping them coming back. Trish, what was the name of that affiliate? Let's give that affiliate a shout out, regardless of they're a best hour affiliate or not. Doesn't matter. Like she said, an ad had an excellent experience dropping in an affiliate today. Good.
All right.
That's how it should be. So while we're waiting on Trish's answer, Joe, talk a little bit more about effective stance and grip. You did earlier. Fern and I, in our coaches development curriculum and affiliate, you talk about this a lot. It's kind of like low-hanging fruit when it comes to coaching. If we simply look at someone's stance, oftentimes we can fix a lot. We're not worried. Like that in and of itself, like you mentioned, can fix midline, can fix, posterior chain engagement, etc. What are some of the things you look for when just kind of scanning a group, static position in an air squat or any sort of squat?
In reference to stance and grip, I will really just take a close look at any faults, almost any fault I see. I will take a close look at that grip and that stance, because there's a really good chance that by adjusting that grip and or stance, we can get that that athlete to adhere to that point of performance. And I think what you said is exactly right, Jason. Like low-hanging fruit. Like, let's just start with this. Rather than me trying to recoach and reinvent the wheel, let me just start with having you take your feet to here and now let me see. And sometimes that can backfire. Sometimes, I'll be the first to admit, I've told somebody, hey, take your hands wider. Or they take their hands wider, and then the next thing out of my mouth is, hey, go back to the way you were doing that before.
But that's a sign of a good coach too.
Sure, to have the humility to be able to back off on your on what you said, and different people like that, and I think that's I don't think it's unrealistic to believe that grip and stance can change often. I think we all can relate to the way we felt the day after Memorial Day compared to the day we felt the morning we woke up on Memorial Day. When we woke up on Tuesday, we had a different threshold than what we did when we woke up 24 hours ago on that Monday. And we did Murph. After you do Murph, you're sore. You come in the next day. You go to your normal stance. You go to your normal grip for whatever you're trying to do, and all of a sudden you're a little sore. You're a little beat up. And the coach can see that a point of performance isn't being adhered to, and that might be just a simple adjustment on a day-to-day basis. And who this is constantly, their threshold is changing along that manner is if anybody on the call or anybody who watches this has ever coached teens. When you coach teens, these, they're growing so fast, and the way their brain is talking to their body. And I used to coach teen weightlifting at the local high school, and like I would be done with a class and be like, "Well done, Joe. You're coach of the year. Got those guys moving well." And then the next day, same kid shows up. He looks like he's got 2 left feet, 4 inches. And I'm like, "Whoa, do this with your hands. Do this with your feet." But you're always adjusting these guys and gals because their body's just changing so much.
Right. How do you navigate this, Joe? Other than being an expert coach, if you were to be assessed at your level 4, if now Joe had to show up and I was watching you, and you're in a class of strangers, or you're a newer coach, and someone needs to change their stance, they're too narrow, and you go up to them, hey, let's take, and they're like, this is where I squat. This is how they give you. Yeah. How do you deal with that person?
Yeah. Yeah, well, if I was in my L4, I'd just kind of whisper in their ear. I'd be like, "Listen, man, I'm being evaluated here, so if you could just do this right now."
Hey, how about you help a brother out? Help a brother out right now.
But I think
I hear you. I know what you mean, though. I hear you. That's obviously just a joke. I think, what it wouldn't be far off of that. It wouldn't be far off of that, because I think it would be like, "Hey, I hear you, and I have empathy for that person. They've been squatting this way for a while. I see something that I want to change, and I'm like, hey, just humor me for a second. I just want to see what it looks like. They do it once, and because they already kind of opened the door up that like they've been doing it a certain way. Now that I got them to trust me, maybe just by saying like, hey, I just want to see, let me just get a look. And then I can ask them for some feedback. What do you think? Does that feel same, better, or worse? And then they can tell me. But I'll always give them my personal feedback as well and be like, well, I'll tell you what, from my vantage point, that looks a lot more sound right there. That looks anatomically correct. You just, and I'm using that exquisite gauge of functional movement that I think to a certain extent is just kind of embedded in our intuition. I really do think that exists. And so I would just ask them, hey man, just non-threatening environment, but it's all in the approach, right? It's that unaccredited degree in psychiatry that I was talking about. I could be like, hey, that stops right there, and it starts right here. Get your feet wider, and nobody's gonna widen their feet up. But just trying to work with them, making them understand that you're here to make them better. I think people can appreciate that, and and then you know what, Jason. Then maybe then it's like if they are totally standoffish, and it's like, no, I'm not doing that. Then I mean, I could even maybe I would get my video camera out. I would just kind of video if they're unsafe. I'm sorry, if they're safe. If they're not going to be in an injurious position, I'll get my video camera out. I'll do a little videotape, and maybe afterwards, things kind of calm down a little bit. Get them off on the side in a one-on-one situation. Hey, you see here? You see how close your feet are? Now let me videotape you this way. You just go a little bit wider, maybe like in a more one-on-one situation, not as threatening, But yeah, that's
do that.
Do
you have like a pre-staged picture of like a dog shitting in the woods? You'd be like, you see this? This is you right here.
This is you.
That's funny.
Yeah, this is what I see. I took this video, and this is what came out.
That would be really, really.
No, but I got to stage that up now. I got to stage that up.
Yeah. This is you.
Have you guys had this experience at either level 1 or level 2? You're coaching someone, they're like, man, I've been doing it wrong this whole time. And you're like, no, like you're not doing it wrong. You're learning, but that's really common there at the level 1s. You get somebody in a better deadlift setup position, and they're like, I've been doing it wrong for 10 years, right? And it's the same principle. It's like, just try this. Let's see how it works for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Videotape.
I hear you.
Yes, Cody. For us older people, that's a term.
Yeah, if you have a VCR, Cody. Actually, here's I think this is a good place to close this out. I'm gonna share a story that Joe and I were on one of our I'll call them dinner dates. Anytime Joe and I have worked together in the past, we get excited. We go to a nice dinner.
We've had some doozies. Yeah,
I heard Joe went on you went with Todd Acuto to want to say to like who's the dude that sings that like a lot, everybody was using them at the wedding, that wedding song, you know what I'm,
oh, he's Todd, so popular. Todd's gonna be upset with me if I can't remember his name.
All of me. He sings that all of me.
Yeah.
Who is that? Anyway, you and Todd went on a bro date to that, right?
Yeah. Tell my best. I'll tell you what, I learned that's all my professional development comes from team dinners. And I love them. I love them when they're one-on-one. And Jason, you and I have had a lot of Ackerman. I don't know if you and I have ever had a one-on-one gig together.
I don't think one-on-one. John Legend is right. But we went to that mac and cheese spot with you.
Yes, back in the day, and that's about 20 minutes from my house. The best macaroni and cheese in the world.
Joe and I have both paid out-of-pocket dinner and broken the dinner threshold with just two of us. We're just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
That was the alcohol, but yeah.
Yeah, but I do want to share this. Like we've had many conversations about coaching and affiliate ownership, and you said something years ago that has always stuck with me, and it was, I'm embarrassed of the affiliate owner that I was 5 years ago. And I want to be embarrassed of the affiliate owner that I am today in another 5 years. And as a coach and as affiliate owners, I think it would be super beneficial if everybody would adopt that, because it just outlines that this whole thing is a process. You're never done, and we should constantly be trying to outdo ourselves moving forward. And that's just always stuck with me, dude. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm glad we got to share it on this platform. I hope it makes sense to people.
I remember being at your box, and first of all, you gave me wine glasses. I have 810 wine glasses upstairs.
Yeah, all right.
And also, it was right around the time you were getting the in-body, and you were like, you tried one thing, like you're always just experimenting. with different ways. And it's never in such a way where it's like, let's experiment to how I can make more money. It's let's experiment to how I can provide better value to my members. And that we all know, Glassman said it on day one, you know, you chase that excellence, the money will come. But if you chase money, excellence isn't always by its side, you know, and an OG owner like you, Joe, like Fern just said, you know, and Fern, to be clear, I think you should feel that way about more things in life, not just as a business owner, right? Husband, father, grandfather, etc. Like, you know, and people get worked up with that word embarrassed. It's like, it's not that you're embarrassed, but it's like, I just want to be better at anything I care about.
I think it's okay to say embarrassed. Like, we don't have to beat around the bush, because if you think about it, if I am embarrassed of the person that I am today, I'm not currently embarrassed of who I am. I think I'm doing a good job. But if I am embarrassed of myself,
maybe you should be embarrassed.
Right. But if I am doing a good job, that means I made significant strides as a human being, as a coach, as a professional, as a dad, as a husband, like whatever. I do want to be embarrassed of that. I want to be like, oh God, what a rookie. Like, how could you possibly have been that bad at the thing? Right. Like, I have no problem feeling like that. Because that makes me work harder.
Humility is a huge asset. Just a huge asset to have that humility.
Willing to admit there may be better ways to do this thing. Wrong. I want to pull this up. Corey says jury is out. Isn't it jury is in? Wouldn't it be jury is in?
All right. Well, I appreciate that, Corey.
But if the
jury's out, that means that they're debating.
They're deliberating. So jury is out, but
no, the verdict is in. You mess this up. The verdict is in. Joe's a good dude.
Yeah. Joe, you're a good dude. People are saying nice things about you in the chat.
This has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. I'm so excited that we got to do this, guys.
Let's bring up the question from Kyle. Do you mind, Fern? Yeah, there you go. In the topic of handling something and keeping you longer, what's a solution to go about teaching, for example, a pull-up where half the class can't hang on the rig and half the class is butterfly? So basically, and you could insert any movement, but you got veterans and you got new people in class. Pull-ups is a great example because some people everyone can air squat to some degree, right? Not everyone can do a pull-up. So how would you approach this, Joe?
Yeah. So, I guess I'm just going to use this specific example of the pull-up, and I'm a big fan of trying to build scalings into the progression, to embed the scaling into the progression as I teach the movement. So, So with the pull-up, for example, all right, we're gonna start. We're going to start maybe with some shoulder pull-ups is what we're going to start with. And if somebody can't do it, we're just guys, and then maybe that's just going to be even in the general warm-up. And then being very, very transparent with my group that like, hey guys, we're going to get to pull-ups in a little bit. And if you can't do pull-ups today, maybe that's going to be their scaling for the day. We're just going to have you do shoulder pull-ups is what we're going to have you do. And then maybe we start moving into, now we're going to start working on our kipping pull-ups. So we're just going to do some kip swings. So now we're doing kip swings, and then being very, very obvious to my class that, hey, as we keep moving, getting closer to this pull up, if you get stuck at any point, you do this for the next part of the progression, and you can do this in the warm up. I think one of the and then you can go into the 2 kip swings plus the kip where they get a bigger one, and then maybe people can do that. Maybe they can even do the pull up, but they can't get their chin above the bar. The pistol is another really good example of a way that you can warm up for a pistol, and then before you get to the pistol, you can have like 7 different ways to warm up, 7 different things to do to warm up, and then at any given point, if you get stuck, you're gonna be right here. So that's how I would do that with a class. I'm a big fan of embedding the scaling into the progression, so everybody feels safe, everybody feels welcomed, everybody feels like they're not going to be the odd person out. Like, oh, cool, Joe just made it all right to do it this way. I'm just going to bail out of that because I don't have that capacity, and I'm going to do this for right now while everybody else is doing that next part.
And that's how you make it individualized for everybody, because everybody's going to get their variation of that.
And essentially he described what you call kind of like the bus stop.
The bus stops, yeah. The bus stops.
Let's have an off-topic question because I see it happening in the chat. I posed the question to both of you. These guys are talking about hot pockets in the chat, and I agree with Judy there was definitely a time I'd be like, "Oh, I'm having a lean pocket. I'm eating really well today. I'm eating healthy." So my question to both of you, prior to learning about nutrition via CrossFit, what's one thing you each did that you would have considered healthy, where now you look back and you're like, no, I was dumb. So I'll give you an example. I used to make mac and cheese and not add the milk or butter, just put the powder on. And I'd be like, this is fat free. This is good for you. What's something you guys used to do that you would consider healthy for nutrition that you now
Campbell's
realize?
chunky soup, dude.
You thought you were being healthy? That like 8,000 milligrams of sodium,
dude. Well,
chicken noodle soup, man, from your from your mouth. It just makes you feel warm and fuzzy.
But did you think you were being healthy when you were eating it?
The chunky soup, I had like the clam chowder or the no, there weren't the ones with the pasta. They were just like soups. And everybody can calm the fuck down about high sodium, and because now everybody's sucking down elements.
Now we're drinking Element,
yeah. I was just like, get the fuck out of here, yeah. But yeah, I was just this. I was also like poor and broke, but I was just like,
I mean, part of it like Kraft mac and cheese was like literally 99 cents.
And I think it's got to be for most people. It's got to be the carb loading stage that we were all educated on when we came through sport. Every athletic coach I ever had, you eat your carbs, get your carbs in. Eat your spaghetti before you wrestle the next day. But for me, it would either be the carbs and just and the noodles, or I'd have to go with the fat-free Fig Newton. A fat-free Fig Newton was the one I
You thought that was. You thought that was healthy?
Fat free, man.
Oh man,
you guys remember watching my weight a fat-free Fig, and it was delicious.
If you want to date ourselves, do you guys remember Snackwells?
Oh yeah, I had plenty of Snackwells, man.
Yeah, fat-free cookies. And Joe, like you, cutting weight for wrestling, I'd be like, these. You know what I used to do? I would get Angel food cake, because I would step on the scale with the food and look at the weight and be like, I can eat this because I'm still underweight. Angel food cake was so light. I was like, I can eat all of it, And meanwhile, you're certainly not fueling yourself for a 6-minute go the next day. Right?
I still
speaking of being embarrassed of the person you used to be. Rice, is that what it was, Jay?
Dude, I still hammer an unreasonable amount of rice. It's scary.
I got those sticky rice containers these days. I like those. What were you gonna say, Joe?
Speaking of being embarrassed of the person we used to be, there's a good example, right? As you bring up Snackwells.
But it is a valuable point. I know we're kind of all joking in the chats talking about theirs. Please let us know what was your food you used to eat that you thought was healthy. But I do think we talk about it a lot in our coaches course, all the people in the chat. Like, we forget there's such a tremendous disconnect between what we eat. If you've taken the level 1, the base knowledge, right, for CrossFit, you are so far beyond the normal, human being in there. Normal people still will wake up, a bowl of cereal or a bagel, glass of orange juice, and be like, I started my day really well. Normal people are still afraid to get bulky lifting weights, right? Normal people still think below parallel is going to hurt you. So it's an important lesson. I know we're joking, but it is a reminder, like, we still have to educate the masses. We still have work to do.
Yeah. We have, it's brilliant, right? I'm going to mess it up. I wish I could remember. I used to have it on my wall at my gym, but right, it is, I can't remember the exact comment. I can't remember the date, but the quote was that, you are in possession of an elegant solution to the world's most vexing problems. And that summarizes that whole L1 kernel, is that, it's all there. And people do, once you take that L1, it's really like people need to be empowered to believe that they have that elegant solution. And it's almost ignorant of us as a species to hold that information proprietary to us. Right. We have to get out there and believe. I don't care if you haven't been coaching, get out there, start spreading the good word, and they have it. It's all that stuff is there from the L1. And one of my I can't say it's necessarily a pet peeve, but definitely it kind of bothers me sometimes when people say like, oh, I took my L1, and I see maybe somebody talking to somebody else. Yeah, I took my L1. That's a good course. You should take it too. and they just kind of brush it off. Like, yeah, I took it and I learned a lot and that was good. Like, go take it again. Go, dude. Like, there's so much. I learned something at every single L1 I do. And I don't know if it's like I learned from a staff member that I'm working with, or I learned from, like, I'm sitting in the back and I have an aha moment of the practical thing that happened this week in my gym, and how it applies to the theoretical material that's being presented right now, whether it's an aha moment like that, or maybe it's something that one of the participants say. There is so much you can, it's like watching a funny movie. When you watch a funny movie that second time, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even hear that joke that time.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff in that L1 that it is a great course. People are right, but it doesn't mean that it's just like a one and done. And I also would like to see, like, I wish we had a lens on it, that it was just kind of like a rite of passage that you did as a CrossFitter, right? Like, you're sitting in the airport, you see somebody with a pair of Nobles on or a pair of Nanos, and it's like, oh, hey, you're a CrossFitter. The next line should be, have you taken your L1 yet? And I would love to change it from being a lens of like only if you're an aspiring coach. So hopefully hopefully this fundamentals course can.
That's where I was going to go with that.
Yeah. So maybe that just kind of wraps the whole thing around. How about that?
There we go. We're full circle now.
Like a stand-up comedian.
To reiterate your point, Joe, I took that level 1 with you in October of 2007, and then the girl I was dating at the time wanted to take it, and I took it again like February-ish of 2008. I learned so much more that second time, because now I can go there, right? It's like I'm not stressed out, I'm not nervous, I've been through it, I'm hearing these lectures again, I had my first notes. Yeah, so if you've taken that level 1, revisit it. There's online, you can go just get the lectures with Chuck and DT and Jenny giving them. There, nowadays there's so many more opportunities. You don't even have to go somewhere. You can just sit on your couch and watch the lectures. So much to learn. So, yeah, that was great stuff. Great stuff, Joe. When are we going to see you again? Are we going to see you at the games?
I hope so. I've been to all of them since like 2009, but I never really know if I'm going until July. People ask me, are you judging again? I think I am, but I haven't been told yet.
I love Joe. He's often a team lead at the games, and Joe gives, like, when you're on Team No Pain with Joe, you get mini pep talks throughout the day, Fern. You get like mini pep talk. Like, you're going out to judge, and you're like, I am ready to fight somebody. Like, Joe gives you the straight pep talk, and it's like, oh, we're just judging? I'm not wrestling somebody? Like, Joe doesn't have that modulator for the pep talk. It's
or he'll walk by and ask you a question that seems like he's joking, and then it'll freak you out. It'd be like, so is it thrusters first? And I'm like, is he fucking serious right now? Am I confused? I'm like, now I'm panicking as I walk out onto the floor because he should know, and now he's asking me, and now I'm afraid I can't read the fucking scorecard.
Joe's also the only other person in the judge's room with me that understands the need to tuck in your shirt to judge.
Yeah, that's a wrestler thing for sure.
Yeah, you don't want to get I always try to get everybody to tuck in their shirt. No one will do it.
Yeah, and I don't. You know what? It's kind of a bad. I'm not really that great of a friend. I appreciate the compliment, but I don't really defend you, and I don't tuck my shirt in too. It's like everybody. I watch everybody make fun of you, and then I come up on the side. I'm like, hey, it's cool. I tuck my shirt in sometimes too, but I'm not going to let anybody else know that.
But I see it. I just need that internal validation. And Jonathan, Fern, and I can say this is the first year we can say with certainty before being asked. We will be at the games.
We will be at the games.
We will be at the games.
We will not be judging this year.
Oh my gosh!
We'll be judging
change the whole dynamic. You're always judging, yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be no fun happening in the back. So basically, here's what happens at the games. There's 30-ish people, one of which is having a good time, joking around, keeping it light. That's me. Everybody else is so serious that eventually they're like,
Joe's in the corner stretching. I'm usually sleeping somewhere.
Bird's usually just handful of whatever candy is over at the just chowing down.
It's either Skittles or the peanut butter stuffed pretzels.
Oh man, yeah, it's impressive what Fern throws out. But thank you, Trish. Yes, I want to be a professional. Tuck that shirt in. All right, Joe. We will let you go. Get back to the community over at 810. Tell Liz we said hi.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
You're gonna be at some Dead shows this summer. Last tour.
Yeah, we got a great concert venue about 20 minutes from us, so we'll be checking it out. And they come through something. This is the last tour of the Dead?
This is the last, so they
Oh,
say.
no kidding. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sure that's been announced before. But
Yeah.
knowing that, I would. Yeah, that always fish hooks me in. I think the last one I did was Bob Seger, last tour. Had to see that one. So
Yeah, still
yeah.
touring. But yeah, grandfather, husband, father, level 4 coach, level 4
Life coach.
assessor, life coach, all those good things, Division 1 wrestler. What a life this guy is. Joe, would you have thought 45-ish years ago you would have all of these, accomplishments under your belt?
It's been I've been very blessed. It's been a fun ride. It's been a fun ride, but don't kid yourself. Anybody who's had a fun ride has all those. I can go right down and be like, oh, I wish that didn't happen. Oh, I wish that didn't happen. Take that one away if I could. But it's been a fun ride. Yeah, for sure it has been.
We worked a seminar. This is in New Jersey. I don't know if you remember this. We were with Jason Khalipa, and this snowstorm is coming in.
Oh yeah.
Right? And Khalipa's freaking out. And I think you guys drove. You guys
Yes.
hightailed it out. But that was like the seminar you're like, I'm gonna be a grandfather.
Yeah,
And
I found out, and then it was Pat Barber.
Yeah, Pat
Jason
Barber was there.
Khalipa,
Yeah.
and I want to say Matt Loden was on that car ride too. And we drove from New Jersey all the way to Detroit. And I'll never forget that Jason Khalipa zone balanced pork rinds and licorice the whole way from New Jersey.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and he was counting them out in the cars. I never saw anything like it before.
Well, I remember you're like, I'm gonna be a grandfather, and we're the same age, so you must have been like 35. You were young, right? When you had your first.
Yeah. Our daughter was we had our daughter when we were 17, and then she had our granddaughter when she was 17.
So 35-ish, and I was like,
yep.
dating girls, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? I was like, this guy's about to be a grandfather, and
as if I got it figured out. As if I got. That's funny.
Yeah,
That's funny that you thought I had it all figured out, and I'm losing my mind. I
did. I was like, I've done nothing. I'm dating a girl right now. Joe's got grandkids on the way. So
you're right, Michael. That is exactly what I was thinking, but not as much as Cody was thinking it.
We showed up without a plan, so there is no timeline though. Cody always gives us a plan.
I'm proud of myself. Cody, I got to many of the questions that you had lined up for us. So yeah.
Good job today.
I've made the producer happy.
That's all there is. I really, Joe is an OG, a legend, and it's really, we appreciate you coming on. When we reached out to all you guys for the L2, it was like a wish list of people, and every single one of you said yes, which was awesome. But
yeah, it's been
Haydock to you, to Pat Barber, to Jennifer Hunter Marshall coming on, a handful of others. Like, man, we are really lucky to have people like Joe Degain in this industry, keeping that salt shaker right in the center of the table where it belongs. Right, Fern?
Yep. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, Joe.
My pleasure. Bye, guys.